What you gonna do, brother, when the bulkomania runs wild on you? What's happening? It's your VapnFagan. I am your host. I am BlackCat. Today, I have a RTA review from a gentleman that we like to call Mr. VapnFagan. If you remember, VapnFagan was on our show on Friday, and he sent me the bulk RTA by VapnFagan and Oumier for the purposes of this review. Now, it's not going to change how I feel about it. I've already talked to him about how I feel about this RTA, and he threatened to kill me. Now, I want that noted in case something were to happen to the BlackCat, then you will know Mark Fagan is the one who did it. He killed me. I'm just kidding. I talked to Mark. This is the prototype or the pre-release version. Now, there are some things on this RTA that are going to be different in the actual retail or release version that is coming out like next week. So I'll mention those as we go through the RTA, show you what you get in the box, all that good stuff. Then we're going to wick it up. I have some coils. Now, one great thing about this RTA, it is powered by Coilology, which is a really, really nice coil maker for the community. And they provide 2 3-core fused Claptons for this RTA. I believe they ohm out at 0.13. I used them during the testing process. I've tested this for about 5 days. So I used it for the testing process, and I'm going to reuse those when I go to wick it up. Now, as a reminder, guys, excuse me, we have a giveaway today, believe it or not, of some fantastic e-juice by Turk and a set of coils from the one, the only Addy Tuney. To enter that giveaway, you're going to go to Monday's episode of the Vape at 5. You're going to put in a number between 1 and 150. If you are watching this live, which a lot of you obviously are if you're watching it now, there'll be a Q&A session after the review. I'll edit that out and post-edit for the actual review, so just ignore that. If you're not watching this live, you won't get that, unfortunately. So without further ado, let's take it down to the table. We're going to look at the bulk RTA by VapnFagan and Oumier. Here we go. All right. There we go. Here is the packaging that you're going to receive the bulk in. On the front there, it says Oumier, bulk RTA, Mr. VapnFagan's logo. You're going to see some words on there. Easy to, huge clouds, good flavor, easy to build. Side, it says the bulk RTA. Scratch and check, Oumier, and designed by VapnFagan. The back here is some information. You can pause this if you'd like and just take a glance at what you get in the box. Some information on the company and some do's and don'ts. I mentioned that it is powered by Coilology, and you see the Coilology logo there on the bottom. Let's open this up and take a look at what you get inside. 2 different glass types. You're going to get a pre-installed bubble tank. You're also going to get a straight glass. Nice piece of glass there, fairly thick. The capacity on the straight glass is going to be 3 milliliters. The capacity on the bubble glass is 5 millimeters. You're also going to get another drip tip. This drip tip is one of the modifications that's going to be in the release version. This drip tip will not be available. It's being actually replaced by a very short, stocky black drip tip. This one I was not a fan of, and it comes installed on the RTA. I took it off immediately for this option. So it's 810 drip tip, wide bore, short, clear, plastic drip tip. I actually really enjoyed this one, and I think I would continue to use it. The other one they're going to have is going to be similar to this, but it's going to be a little smaller in diameter, and it's going to be a little shorter. So just a little stub black Delrin drip tip is going to be in the retail version. Also inside the box, you're going to get some cotton, some extra O-rings, some extra deck screws. They give you a ton of deck screws here, guys. I believe you get 6 extra sets of deck screws with the RTA. You're also going to get an Allen key, which I have set to the side here. Oh, nope, it's right there in the box. I'll need that for when I install my coils. And you get a set of coils, which I had already used by Coilology, aforementioned. All right, let's take a look at the RTA. So here it is. First thing you notice is it's two-tone color with the black top and bottom and the stainless steel barrel. That is not going to be in the final version. The final version will be all solid color. So it will be all black or all stainless steel. It is also going to be available in gold. As they continue to sell this, depending on the popularity of the bulk, will be whether they decide if they're going to make more colors. So you could end up seeing purple, green, blue, red, all different colors, but the original three are going to be gold, stainless steel, and black. And here is a look on the barrel there. It says bulk, not flashy. Another thing on here, this red O-ring. I don't mind it so much, but this will be black in the retail version, and the red O-rings will be available. They will be in the packaging. So again, here is the drip tip that I'm using for it. Top is knurled, very easy to get on and off. Pull it out here. You can really crank it down, actually. It's the top of it there. Inside here, two really nice sized fill ports. Machining on it is very well done. There's a little bit of a little rough edge on here on the inside. I noticed when I was doing just a visual inspection of it, but nothing really to call out, and nothing, certainly nothing that affects the operation of the RTA. All right, so to unscrew it here, we're just going to pull the bottom off, and this will take the barrel and glass off. So there we go. Side the barrel there. Came very clean. I wash everything I get, as I always mention. The device came extremely clean, though. I didn't notice any grease or machine oil or anything like that on the RTA. And there's the barrel. It says bulk. Pretty beefy O-ring there. No leaking or anything I noticed at all from it. So the O-rings actually stay very well. Here's the bubble tank that you get. Again, this is 5 millimeters of juice capacity. Right there. Or you can change it out for the straight glass. Bottom of the RTA says bulk by Oumier and VapnFagan. Protruding 510 pin, gold plated, not, I don't know, you know, I've seen a lot of people lately running RTAs on mechanical devices and even on hybrid mechanical devices. I'm not a fan of that. I'm more of a dripper when it comes to mechanical tube mods, but you certainly, you know, you can do whatever you want. This one, though, I would not suggest doing. It does not look like it's hybrid safe to me. I would probably avoid that and find another RTA with a little bit further protruding 510 pin. Airflow control is a little tight. You have 3 of these 2 by 10 millimeter holes around the bottom of the RTA. It's a little tight. You're going to have a little bit of trouble getting it to open and close. It will work in eventually as you continue to use it. But just out of the gate, I noticed it was a little tight. A lot of airflow. So 2 by 10 times 3 is how much airflow you have coming in here, bottom airflow to the deck. And here is the BTFC deck that is in the bulk RTA. This is a 22 millimeter version of that deck. Tune that in, sorry for the camera shake. You have 4 Allen key type screws in here, which you guys know I absolutely love. They're nice and deep, so you don't have to worry about stripping them, or at least I didn't see any reason why you would. You also have 4.5 milliliter lead ports or deck holes here for your coils. Each one is 4.5 millimeters, which would allow for some pretty beefy coils if that's what you decide to put in it. I have in 3 millimeter coils, and I wouldn't say that you could go above that. Or I wouldn't suggest going above 3 millimeters. I would probably keep it at that. The airflow holes here from the bottom airflow are 4.5 or 4 millimeter air holes. You have 4 of those going directly onto the coils. When you install them, they're going to sit right onto those air ports. And I'll show you how I actually installed them. I tried to get the coils as close together as I possibly could and away from those air ports as far as I could as well to allow that airflow to come up and push that flavor up. Here's the machining on the deck. A little bit of machine marks on it. I think in this price range, though, that's what you're going to see. Everything's nice and smooth, though, and again, came very clean. One thing I did notice when putting the cap on, and I'll do it here just to kind of show you, you're going to have to screw it back a little bit before you screw it down. That is another change that's going to be on the retail version. It almost fails to, I should probably not even mention it because it's not going to be. And I think the problem with that is because you have these giant juice wells, which is a huge pro for me. You have these giant wicking ports here, but it does break up the continuity of your threads. And so when you go to put the top cap back on, it makes it a little difficult to make connection and to actually grab, but that again will be resolved in the final version. One of the biggest pros of this deck, aside from it being the BTFC deck, which to me was the best RTA of 2018, is these giant wicking ports. You can easily fit your wick down in there. It has a wall buildup here that will try to keep the juice from getting into your airflow. I did not notice any leaking at all, and I had this thing upside down on its side. I mean, I used it for the last 5 days, every single day. It did not leak from the bottom one time. So I would not worry about getting juice in those air holes. All right, I mentioned that we're going to wick it up, so let's go ahead and do that. I'll bring you guys back up top after that to give it a vape. So first thing I'm going to do is close off my air ports there just so I don't forget. I'll bring you guys up a little bit. You're going to see the top of my hands. They're old hands, and I'm sorry about that, but I can't help it as I install these coils. So let's get busy here. Very easy deck to install. Very easy deck to use. Let me make sure I get these Allen screws out of there as best I can. See the other side. Oh yeah, those are closed. Let me open these up. There we go. This is certainly an RTA that if you have very little experience with building and installing coils, you would have absolutely no problem with this deck. Same as the BTFC. Very easy to use, very easy to install. Put that down in there just a bit more. There we go. One thing to mention, when you put these coils in originally, obviously you're going to have the lead sticking out of the bottom here. Right there. Now, you can't have those leads touching the barrel. So you're going to have to make sure that you cut them short enough that they do not touch the barrel. I think that goes without saying for most of you, but for those of you who have never installed coils before, make sure that the leads coming out right here are not out far enough. You want them to be flush with the back of the deck here. You do not want those protruding because if they do touch the barrel, then they're going to short out. Let's see, get this started again. I had one of the deck screws pop out. There we go. Oh, you son of a bitch. Let's go ahead and dump him out of there, and I'll just put it on manually. All right. There we go. All right, let's get that second coil installed. You have two different holes here. You have your air hole and you have your coil lead hole. Make sure that you have it in there. Don't put it in the wrong one or it will be a giant pain in the butt trying to get it screwed down because it will be in the airport. So let's go ahead and screw that down. All right, now I'm going to position these coils exactly how I use them. So right now they are too close to that airflow for my liking, so I'm going to pull them a little bit in, and I'm going to pull this one a little bit up. There we go. And I want them where they're almost touching. I'm telling you right there, guys, that is exactly where you want them. It was blurry. I didn't notice, and I apologize. So that's how you want them right there. Almost touching, as far away from that airflow as you can go without touching the top of the barrel. You do not want them sitting right on that airflow. Just like that. And that one actually is a little high, so let's just take this one down. And as I take it down, I'm going to bring it as close to that other coil as I can without touching it. Right there. Sorry about the blurry camera there. I was paying attention to getting that screw in, and I did not notice. If you're watching this and you haven't fast forwarded, I appreciate that. Let's bring you up a little bit. I'm going to wick it up. That's why I need that new camera, which is coming very, very soon. Going to be using some cotton threads today. My old favorite. The easiest, by far the easiest wick I've ever used. Let's pull that through here. This is a 28 millimeter RTA, and from the bottom to the tip, depending on the drip tip you have in there, it's about 45 millimeters. So it is a short, stubby bastard. And the reason that it is that way is because Mark wanted to have a big enough build deck, which he did. He put a 22 millimeter BTFC build deck in this, which I think is fantastic, without really risking too much of the juice capacity. You still get 5 mils of juice with the bubble tank, which I think is certainly sufficient enough for a day. Unless, you know, you could always bring your bottle with you, but I think 5 mils is enough for most people. So we're going to go ahead and pull this out just a little bit. Now, you want your cotton, as I always say, I've done 3 or 4 RTA reviews in a row now. And the one thing I always mention is you want your wick to barely touch the deck. You do not want a ton of wick. You want that to barely touch the deck so that it pulls that juice right up. You definitely don't want any hanging out of the cap or the barrel. There we go. That's nice. So we're going to be wicking it up with some Cat's Whiskers e-juice. So the original name of this RTA was the BTFC. I figured I would mention that. Mark mentioned it. And the reason why they didn't do it is they tried to do the top airflow and they just could not figure out a way for it to work effectively. And it just did not seem to work. So that's when they decided to change it. And he then changed it to the bulk RTA, which I really like that name. I think it's great. I'm going to put this into the port here. And get that right there. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So, I wish I had a better camera. There is just a tiny bit of wick touching the deck here. That's exactly how you want it. Just barely touching the deck. So, very easy to put the wick in here. You have that giant wicking port. Just going to push that all together, let that juice catch everything, and now I'm just going to fit it in there. There we go. There we go. And that is wicked and ready to go. One thing I like to do before I put the cap back on is I'm going to give it an extra shot of juice, just because the wicking process does take a little bit, and I don't think you get the best vape off an RTA until it's wicked for at least a couple hours, or at least an hour, to let that capillary action pull all that juice up from the tank. So I kind of cheat a little bit and give myself a little bit of juice so I don't pull too dry of a hit when I first hit it. All right, let's put that bubble glass back on. I'll show you what I'm talking about here with putting on the cap, how you're going to do it. You're just going to set it on top here. You're just going to pull it back a little bit until you feel it catch. Whoops. Pull it back till you feel it catch. And then screw it on. And again, that will be rectified in the final version. You can really crank this down too. So get it on there nice and tight. I got my airflow control closed. I'm going to go ahead, fill it up. All right, there we go. Put on the top cap. And let's get it off of here. Now, once I got it on here, or once I got it filled with e-liquid, I'm going to go ahead and open it back up. There we go. Let that juice start getting in the juice ports there. All right, let's go back up top and talk about the bulk RTA. Okay, we're back up top with the bulk RTA from VapnFagan and Oumier. Let's take a couple pulls off of it. Let me see what I got this set at, wattage-wise. 106. Now, I vaped this with that build in, with the build or the coils from the packaging. I vaped this between 100 and 105, and that watts. And that's where I found the best vape for this device. So that's where I suggest if you're going to use the coils out of the box, they're 0.13. So that's about where I wanted to be. That's what I felt was the best flavor, the best vapor production. And that's another huge thing about this. The vapor production on this, when this thing is wide open, is huge. This is with it wide open. I mean, it's amazing. Amazing vapor production with it wide open. I ran it about halfway open. Okay? It's a lot of airflow. And I really get a lot of notes of the juice. Even at 100 watts, I'm getting a lot of notes on this juice. Now, we had Mark on the show on Friday. I asked him a lot about the making of this RTA and things like that. One thing I asked him was, did he run it wide open airflow? And I was curious because I felt like the airflow, I felt it was a little airy for me. It's a lot of airflow on this RTA, and I'm going to mark that as one of the cons that I have. It's a little bit too much airflow for me. I guess it's better to have too much than not enough because if you can adjust it to change exactly how much you want. I ran it about halfway open. That was how I prefer to vape it. Again, that's a really subjective con because that's how I like to vape. So I ran it about halfway open the majority, or well, pretty much all the time that I had it. The other con I had for it is that airflow control at the bottom is a little tight for me. It's a little tight. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to actually adjust it. But I've noticed as I've continued to use it over the last week that it started to loosen up. So that's something that it's going to rectify itself. And again, it may be something that they address in the retail version. Again, nitpicking a little bit, but those would be the cons. The pros for this RTA. First is the flavor. You've got the BTFC deck. The 2018, that is the best RTA, in my opinion, of 2018. The BTFC deck does not disappoint. The airflow, the way that it comes up right underneath the coil, that old traditional Kennedy style where it comes right up underneath the coil without it leaking or anything like that, they figured out how to do it. And it works fantastic. You're getting great flavor like you do from the BTFC. It's not comparable, or it's comparable, but it's not equal to it because the BTFC is an RTA. It's a dripper. So you're going to get better flavor. But for an RTA, they certainly really maximized the amount of flavor that you can get from the BTFC deck. The wicking ports being nice and big, I really, really like that. I think that's a great touch to it. I think it's really fantastic. It is easy to install, easy to wick. This is something that somebody who has very little experience with RTAs can use and really have an enjoyable vape, as long as you don't cut that wick too long. Cut it where it barely hits the deck. You can cut it a little long. As long as it hits the deck, you're going to get the juice pull up. It wicks really well, though. It wicks just as well as any other RTA that I've used recently, and I've used some good ones. The price. So, out of the gate, this is going to be $33 out the door. I think that is a very fair, reasonable price for this RTA. You get an extra glass with it. You get the bubble glass, plus you get the straight glass. That's a nice incentive to buy it. You get a set of Coilology coils. They're not cheap. And I think that's a really, really nice incentive as well. The machining on it is very, very nice. The look of it is very, very nice. You get 2 drip tips with it as well. I think $33 is a very reasonable price for this RTA, especially just out of the gate. The look of it. I like the look. I like the way it looks. I'm not a bubble tank guy, and I didn't have any problems with this RTA at all with the bubble tank on it. I think it looks really, really nice. It's not flashy. I don't mind the red O-ring. Of course, that's going away unless you want it. It's going to be in the box. You can reinstall it if you like the red O-ring. I don't mind it, though. And I think it looks okay. The two-tone, which I have, is going to be going away. It's going to be black, it's going to be gold, or it's going to be stainless steel. I think the gold bulk, which you see in the tile that I used, is gorgeous. I think that is gorgeous. And if I was going to buy one, when I buy one, it's going to be the gold one. Again, if the popularity of the bulk rises and there's more demand for it, more colors will be available. And I think the biggest pro for this is something I've already mentioned in the pros, is the BTFC deck. Mark and Oumier, well, primarily Mark, VapnFagan, figured out how to get the BTFC deck in an RTA. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, because that is a top airflow RTA and bottom airflow RTA. So I'm sure it wasn't easy, but he figured it out. And not only did he figure it out, but he put in a 22 millimeter version of it. That's a big deck for an RTA. It really is. Did he compromise the size of it? Yeah, I mean, it's 28 millimeters. I mean, it's a bigger RTA, but with that 22 millimeter deck, he didn't want to make it any smaller than that, and I can understand that. I can certainly understand that. So I would say that he had to give a little bit on the size in order to get that size deck in it. I don't think it would have worked at 20 millimeters. I really don't. It'd have been too small. And I'll tell you, you would have had real trouble getting a 3 millimeter, dual 3 millimeter coils in that 20 millimeter deck. You really would have. The 22 is perfect. It is absolutely perfect. So on a scale of poor to excellent, I rate this RTA as great, a strong great. For $33, for the extras that you get in the box, for the flavor that you get on this RTA, the 5 millimeter capacity of it makes it a really, really nice all-day carry. And this is really the perfect RTA for driving. That's what I really enjoyed it the most. It's when it was the best for me. It's perfect for driving. I took a couple hour trips this weekend to a couple different places, hour back. It lasted me the entire hour there, lasted me the entire hour back, and I still had enough juice in there that I didn't have to fill it up until evening time. So it is really, really a nice RTA for driving. That's where I found it to be the most enjoyable. You can pick these up everywhere. They're going to be available on Element. They're going to be available on Vapor DNA. They're going to be everywhere. The bulk RTA by VapnFagan, and